Okay, so also we want to cover this idea of maintaining the ideal. So did I use the analogy of the tour bus at any point?
Yeah, 6 p.m. Yeah.
Good. I'm going to repeat it because it's such a good example. So in terms of maintaining the ideal, so we gave that example of, you see a fire coming out of your waste paper basket. There's a real intense fixation on that ideal, right? So we don't want to give the impression that when we have an ideal that we have to force ourselves to hold on to it with that intensity. So going back to that example, you don't have to put any effort into gripping that idea tightly. What's going on in the waste paper basket? Why is there smoke? You don't have to force yourself to think about that. It's just perfectly natural for you to have that degree of intensity. So we shouldn't force ourselves to hold on to the ideal, right? Spiritual practice is never forced. You never have to force something. You have to put in consistent effort. There must always be that conscious effort, but it's not forced effort. And so that idea, or that analogy that we gave, is an example of how we maintain the ideal. So you're on holiday, and the hotel has a tour bus. It leaves from the lobby at 6 a.m, travels for a couple of hours and goes to a tourist destination. So as you're on your way to the tourist destination, you're reading the brochure and it says, yes, there's nature walks and there's a beach and there's museums and there's markets and there's all these other things, and you enjoy them, right? You get to the destination, and as you're all filing off the bus, the tour guide says, now remember, the bus leaves from here to go back to the hotel at 6 p.m. Enjoy your day. And so off you all go, spreading in different directions. And you go to the beach, and you go for a nature walk, and then you go to the museum, you go to the market. Now, while you're enjoying all of these things, what's the one thing you never forget? The bus leaves at 6. You're not forcing yourself to hold on to it. It's not a forced idea. It's just something that sits naturally and consistently at the back of our awareness. The bus leaves at 6. And so this will have the effect of changing our behavior. If I know the bus leaves at 6 and I go to the theatre and I see, starting at 4:30, there's a 2-hour performance. No thank you, I can't. If I didn't have the ideal, if I like performances, I go and watch it and I miss the bus. So this is the two aspects. One is the way that the ideal is held. It's very light. It's consistent, there's effort, but it's softly in the background. This other aspect now shows us what effect the ideal has. The choices that I make will be determined by the ideal that I am functioning towards. So if I'm functioning towards getting back to the bus at 6, it dictates my choices. Let's say I have the ideal of self-development, which means relating in all activities with less ego, less attachment. So now I'm having an argument with my spouse, and she says something which is clearly wrong, and I know, I've got her. I'm going to point out what she's got wrong, and I'm going to take the moral high ground, and from there I'm going to win the argument. Why? Well, because I like being right, that's why. But then somehow, suddenly, it flashes into my awareness. What's your ideal? My ideal is to be less egocentric, to have a more harmonious relationship with my wife. Pointing out what she got wrong, is that relevant? How's that going to advance your ideal? How's that being less egocentric? How is that having greater harmony in your relationship? Well, technically it's not. Fine, I'll let it slide. And so you don't point out the error. You don't do a little victory lap because you were right. The whole choice that you make, the whole way that you're relating to the person has been shifted now because we are being less egocentric, because we are maintaining the ideal. The bus leaves at 6. I can't get into the theatre at 4:30. I have an ideal of self-development. I can't be right for the sake of being right. So it's changing all of the choices that we make. And it is the choices that we make that get us to where we are right now. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you healthy? Are you unhealthy? These are all because of the choices that we have made. So wherever I end up 1 year, 10 years, 30 years from now will be because of the choices that I make. Well, how do I make sure I make the right choices? Make the choices based on my ideal. Without an ideal, we will end up wherever the mind wants us to go. So we've got to stop being a passenger.